Hey, it's Soul with another video, and we're on the third recap of Midnight coverage as we progress through Gamescom. A big old video is planned for Sunday, where I go through everything we've learned throughout the week, but today we'll share what's been revealed, namely the story, quest, and lore panel from earlier today. Please like this video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me where I'm live. Early in the panel, the devs pointed out Silvermoon City would still be in fact a Horde city, and there'd be a small shared space for both Horde and Alliance players. I've noticed a lot of early concerns, and when it comes down to it, we gotta see for ourselves before we can pass judgment, but I'll share some of my understanding here. Silvermoon City was always a Horde city in the world of Warcraft, and for some, it would feel like ceding territory to the Alliance if there was like a 50-50 split, or if the city was fully neutral. I mean, that's just players' feelings, right? But that early feedback was very loud when we first learned Silvermoon City would be the player hub, and I guess this is the compromise. With what we've learned, there are new concerns that Alliance players' accessibility would be like kind of getting a closet space and nothing more in Silvermoon. Now, I have a feeling, and it's just a feeling, that the player hub of Silvermoon is going to be roughly the size of Dalaran, which is a very dense player hub with its top layer and the sewers below. And I don't recall people being very upset about its size compared to Shattrath, which was the hub from the previous expansion. Or even when we had Dalaran a second time in Legion, something recycled content. Assuming a Dalaran-sized hub with all the important bits, and the Horde side of Silvermoon being mostly for roleplay, it seems like this will work. If anything, I anticipate Horde players complaining that there isn't a lot to do in Silvermoon proper, because Alliance players would get mad about that. And folks in general, they're going to be upset that in the interest of fairness, Silvermoon's going to feel dead, so this conversation is going to be a lot of fun. Much of the panel recapped the story thus far for latecomers, but it also points out this new shot of Ilaria and Turalion's son Eretor, with a new model and interesting hairstyle with what looks like a head tattoo. They pointed out Turalion would effectively be a representative of the light. I presume this is because Anduin's probably back taking up his duty as a king, and the transition happened without too much of a hitch. They also note it's the Army of the Light, who shows up at the end of the Midnight Reveal cinematic to stop Xal'atath in her tracks. Other major characters we'll see in Midnight will include Lady Liadrin, who they mention has a grudge against the Yamani trolls. Orena of the Heronir is gonna, of course, play a part in the Herondar storyline. Umbrig of the Void Elves is gonna be around, and we meet two new trolls, Zuljara and Zul'Jan, the grandkids of Zul'Jin, and not immediate enemies despite being forest trolls. It's way too early to say allied race, although I know I just kinda triggered you. We'll see how that turns out. Suspiciously not mentioned in the panel, though, is Lorthamar. We'll see if he ends up taking the plunge early on, but in the past, devs have dropped like subtle hints of character deaths that I didn't quite catch during this panel. From listening, it sounds like while we're mostly fighting against the Void, we'll be re-exploring the idea of extreme ideology in Part of the Light, as in like being this suppressive force that has to be obeyed unless you shatter it like Illidan did. Kind of a common trope with the little mortals caught between two ancient forces trying to convert them to their side, but I didn't get the impression this would translate into a gameplay choice as if we're choosing a covenant for a special power or something. Just like Dragonflight and the War Within, with Quel'Thalas as the major kingdom, we'll get lots of casual Blood Elf wear. Nice. Quel'Thalas itself is going to combine both Eversong Forest and the Ghostlands, including adding a bit more space to give more of that modern WoW zone size. Time has passed, the dead scar has healed, but some places are still kind of jank with overgrowth as time passed and new problems they call a void storm, which happens to be the name of one of the other zones. And Silvermoon City, of course, is way, way bigger. Zul'Aman was a raid, then it was a dungeon, and now it's a whole zone. The devs point out the Forest Troll's disconnection from the Loa and the Void Storm problems. Between that and problems with the Blood Elves, it'll be cool to see if they reconnect to the Loa, who have been mostly forgotten by the Yamani. Herondar is home to the Heronir. Fungal jungle is one way they describe the place, and that's gonna stick to me forever. I'm gonna keep my eye out for spore bits. In the preview, they dropped this name, the Rift of Ulm, or at least it sounded like that. That's for those who are familiar with Druid lore. Some Heronir are assigned to guard the place and prevent creatures from escaping. The Heronir themselves host some pretty cool customizations, but I want to point out this one here. This female model looks very different from the other female models. I don't know if it's a problem, but it makes me wonder how extensive will the race customization be, and when can other races get similar treatment? In the Voidstorm Zone, which is a world the Void themselves built, we're going to deal with what's apparently a whole hierarchy of Void creatures all of which will try to eat you. They clarified a little bit of info on delves, dungeons, and raids. Some delves will be outdoorsy, meaning we can mount up, at least for ground travel. The dungeon stories they were telling were kind of slim. Murder Row is part dungeon, part investigation in the use of fell magic. Windrunner Spire turned into a dungeon, and it's going to explore the history of our favorite family. Voidscar Arena is meant to have a sort of Violet Hold feel with waves of mobs before the boss, but we're still going to have Mythic Plus, where we're going to be able to speed up the mob spawns, which makes this already my favorite Mythic Plus dungeon with no pathing. At launch, the 8 dungeons will be available in Mythic 0 form from the get-go, before we go off to the familiar 4 dungeons here and 4 dungeons elsewhere format we've seen in the War Within Seasons. We didn't learn if there's going to be a release schedule for the 3 upcoming raids, but story mode will be available for all 3 of them, which is pretty cool. Finally, in another interview with IGN, they pointed out how the upcoming praise system isn't going to feel like a required step for progression, but more like another added level of gameplay for outdoor players who want to find new challenges outdoors and not just in delves. So outside of the cosmetic rewards and the glory of completing the challenge, it doesn't appear the praise system is trying to sell itself too hard as this grand old feature, at least that's my impression so far. And that about wraps up things for today. There's no panel or anything on Friday, but we can expect to learn a lot of information Saturday with the systems panel, and developers will sit down with Mr. GM and Taliesin and Evitel for fireside chats. You can join me on stream as we go over that information, hopefully it'll come in on time, and on Sunday expect a big roundup of everything we should have learned all in one sitting, haha. Please like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.